Rotary welcome to Daniel Morrison and Scott Paul. Thank you very much. Good to have Caroline here. We've got so many great fans in Charlotte, and all across the Carolinas, and we're so appreciative of that. I would like to say that was a special Pledge of Allegiance with Fernando, and you know, it strikes me. Go ahead and get out. It strikes me that there's very few places where we do the Pledge of Allegiance anymore, and that's really a tragedy. We're here to talk about the stadium. I thought it might be helpful before I turn it over to Scott to just give you a snapshot of the stadium. As you know, franchise was awarded October 26, 1993. At that time, the city of Charlotte was aggressive in pursuing land for the stadium. The land was acquired for $60 million, which also included building the parking deck. So $60 million, primarily from the city. Some other public money went into acquiring the land and also building the parking garage. The Panthers spent about $190 million for the construction of the stadium, funded by the Panthers and the PSLs. Took about so that's $250 million. $105 million to finance, so that's $355 million. Panthers have put in about $50 million over the years to keep it pristine and to keep it current, so that's $405. And then operating and maintaining the stadium has been approximately $10 million or so per year, so that's $190. So about $595 million to run, operate, build the stadium, and acquire the land, which was a $60 million public investment. Now here's the return on the public investment of $60 million. First of all, the Panthers in direct taxes have paid $215 million in direct taxes. There was a study by John Connaughton, UNC Charlotte, a few years ago. What was the impact of sports in Charlotte? And the impact in sports in Charlotte was over $1 billion a year annually. And we heard anecdotally that the Panthers were responsible for over half of that. So we went to the University of South Carolina and asked them to embark on a study to come look at what the Panthers' impact would be in Charlotte. And the reason South Carolina, they hadn't been here before, and we said to them, be conservative. The numbers are going to be big. We want you to be conservative so they're numbers that people will understand and believe. And so they come and they do the study, and what they found was the annual economic impact of the Panthers, $636 million per year, $362 million direct, and then they used a multiplier. I don't know how these things, most of the time they use like 2.2, they used a 1.4, and the indirect was $274 million. So then we asked the question, well, that's great, but how about in Mecklenburg County? What's the impact in Mecklenburg County? The impact in Mecklenburg County, $512 million, $291 million direct. And then to take you back, when the land was acquired, the land was generating $64,000 per year in tax revenue. Today, the Panthers pay over $2 million a year in tax revenue. But you can talk about the numbers and the economics and so forth, but there's also quality of life. What does it mean for the brand? There are only 31 cities in America that have an NFL franchise, and just the enormous exposure that comes along with that. The exposure is this. If you look at television shows, and not just sports shows or sports events, but television, 34 of the 35 highest rated shows were NFL games last year. If you go to the Harris poll that they do every year about favorite sports, it was really interesting to me, having spent almost all my life in college athletics, how powerful the NFL brand is. The Harris poll in 2013, favorite sport, 35% NFL, 14% Major League Baseball, 11% college football, 7% auto racing, 6% NBA basketball. The power of the NFL brand. Since 2005, ratings or viewership for NFL football has gone up 24%. Viewership for TV in general has gone down 22%. So that's a pretty good gap of 24 up, 22 on viewership, and it gives you a reason why the broadcast stations are paying so much money for the content of NFL football as people watch it, and it's really staggering the power of the NFL brand. So I'm sitting in Meadowlands, 2009. Last game in the Meadowlands, Panthers playing the Giants. There's a stadium being built to the right. It was $1.5 billion. The new stadium, new MetLife Stadium is being built, and we played great that day, by the way. It was a wonderful day to close up the Meadowlands. We got some choice words from some of our Giants fans that we were exiting, but I asked the question, I said, well, how old is this Meadowlands Stadium? And the answer was 32 years, something like that. And I started doing the math. I said, wow, then we're over halfway through the perceived life cycle at Bank of America Stadium, and we have this wonderful stadium in a park, this classic American stadium, and the bones are so great. What can we do renovation-wise? So Mr. Richardson encouraged us to look at every stadium in the NFL. He knows all the stadiums well because he chaired the stadium committee where 25 of the stadiums were either renovated or new stadiums developed in the NFL. It seems like he gets every hard job in the NFL because he has so much trust among all of the owners. He co-chaired the CBA 2 times ago, chaired the stadium committee, co-chaired the commissioner search, and then he was the co-chair, but really the lead person on this last collective bargaining agreement that is unbelievable in the fact that there's a 10-year labor agreement, which is unheard of in professional sports, especially with no out clause. So, and this stability has made tremendous impact on the whole business environment and enabled everyone to concentrate on making the whole game better and the whole experience better. So anyway, we looked at every single stadium in the NFL, and the 2 stadiums at the time that we concentrated on, one was a new stadium, one was a renovated stadium. The new stadium in a market somewhat similar, Indianapolis, cost about $720 million. Lucas Oil at that time about $620 million funded from the public. On the renovation side, we looked at Kansas City. Kansas City had done the bones at Arrowhead were not near the bones at Bank of America Stadium, nor has it had been maintained as well, and the capital investment continued. So it was about $375 million in Kansas City and about $280 million funded from the public. So we looked at that in 2010. Then Mr. Richardson pushed us to look at a strategic master plan for the stadium. So we brought in 4 of the national architectural firms to look at the stadium, and they all said the same thing. And I can say this, I had nothing to do with it. Great bones, incredibly well designed, wide concourses, classic American stadium. They're not building bowls anymore. Bowls are kind of a thing of the past. And so we have this classic stadium in a park. How do we take it and make it so that it's as good, if not better, than these $1.5 billion stadiums that are being built? So we went through that process. The price tag ended up over a 10-year period or so to be somewhere around $250 million investment needed. So in 2000, and then we ended up hiring, we had these 2 local architects that were involved in the project. We had Populous involved, Then we had Dave Wagner of Wagner Murray here in Charlotte, and we had Ron Smith of McMillan Pazin Smith in the upstate of South Carolina. So we had architects from both of the Carolinas. They've now taken the leadership role on our renovation. So September of 2012, we get a letter from Mayor Fox that invites us to have a discussion with the city staff and also the city council regarding our renovation efforts. So we go through a very intense negotiation period. Where's Ron Kimball? He's tough. He's a tough negotiator. So we went through a very tough negotiation period. We ended up in April with the city council, or sometime around that time period of 2013, unanimous vote to invest $75 million into the construction and renovation of the stadium, and the Panthers would commit to 37.5. The $75 million from the city will come in a 3-year period, 3 distinct years. $28 million this year, 2014, $23.5 in 2016, $23.5 in 2018. Now this year, we're investing $65 million approximately into the renovations. $28 million funded by the city, the Panthers $37 million, so we'll exceed over the course of the next 4 or 5 years, we'll far exceed the $37.5 million that we had committed to. We're excited about our renovations. Mr. Richardson said this when we started talking about renovations. 1, keep the classic American stadium design. 2, make sure we maintain the stadium in the park feel. And 3, the majority of the renovations must impact all 74,000 fans. And that was a real driver as we've gone through this process to focus on all 74,000 fans to improve the fan experience, not just on premium levels. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Scott Paul. Scott's our Director of Stadium Operations. He actually came to the Panthers as an intern out of the University of Georgia. He's done a fabulous job. You're talking about stress. We started this in January, this project, and we've got to be through in July, and he handles it beautifully. His people that he works with love working with him. He's got great relationships with our architects and Turner Construction and Rogers, and he's just doing a magnificent job, so please welcome Scott Paul.
Thank you, Danny. I'm here to talk about actually what we're doing this year. And as Danny said, as we walked through this process, we had 2 primary goals for these projects. And 1, we wanted to affect the majority of the fans for this first year of renovation, as in the remainder of our renovations. If not the majority, then, or if not all fans, the majority of the fans. And we also wanted to dramatically improve the fan experience. And this first phase of renovations, we think we met that goal. We're going to talk about the 4 major projects that we're working on this year. Our escalators, we're improving the sound system, the video boards, and the ribbon boards. And if you think about it, all those projects affect 74,000 people with the exception of the escalators, because the 100 level folks don't need to go up the escalators. So this first slide, which I'll run through, really gives you a good concept of what this stadium is going to look like when we open up for soccer on August 2nd. We are going from 800 linear feet of ribbon board in that stadium to 3,900 linear feet on the ribbon boards. And if you see, we're going 2 levels, like Danny said, of 360-degree ribbon boards. The primary use of this upper ribbon board is going to be for fan engagement, for game information, for fantasy scores, for out-of-town scores, closed captioning. It's going to be your information hub inside the stadium for both the Panther game and everything going on in the sports world out there. The second level down here is going to be primarily for fan prompts and our sponsor commitments throughout the stadium. So we're going from 800 linear feet to over 3,900 linear feet of ribbon board. And we really feel like this is going to bring that stadium alive on game days. Moving up to the video board here. Currently we had approximately 2,300 square feet of video board. This new video board is all LED and it's approximately 11,000 square feet on both sides, per side. This is the primary use that you'll see at Bank of America Stadium this year on how we plan to use our video board. And that center board there is 2.5 times what you saw last year. So approximately 5,500 square feet. And as you can see, we use the left and right for fan prompts, game information, and some sponsor commitments. But we're also able to go side by side there and create two separate 5,500 square foot images that we'll use maybe for two angles of replay and those kinds of things. A third project, we're going from a single point source sound system, which we have right now in our west end, to a fully distributed sound system. And right now we've got all of our lower level speakers in, and these lower level speakers are going to be hung just below that fascia there. And those speakers will service the entire lower bowl. The upper level speakers was a little bit of a challenge in that we needed a place to hang the speakers. The light standards are an obvious choice. Underneath the new video boards will have speakers. But we also wanted to create a little bit of a festival atmosphere and look for a nice design way to attach speaker poles to service the entire 500 level. Wagner Murray came up with this flagpole, so there'll be 32 of those flagpoles that will supplement the light standards and the video boards to give a fully distributed sound system throughout the stadium. This is going to dramatically improve the sound at the stadium. If you think about it, a single point source system from the west end scoreboard would have to service those fans in the corner of the upper 500 level approximately 600 feet away. Now there'll be a speaker within about 120 feet maximum of any person in that stadium. So we really feel like we're going to improve the sound clarity of this project with this project. What happened there? Did I turn it off? I got it. Okay, sorry. This next slide is a cross section of the escalators. And what you're seeing here is we pulled the skin off the building and we built an escalator bay, 4 of these, approximately 28 feet out. And it was important as we walked through this process with the architects that we, as Danny said, we kept that stadium in the park field. So landscape protection, tree protection was important to us. We didn't want to disturb that, but we also wanted to keep the integrity of the design from 1996 in place. And so we're peeling the skin off here, we're adding escalator bays, and we're putting back a remanufactured skin to match the existing infrastructure so that the average fan would not know that we added escalators 17 or 18 years later. Like I said, each of these, we have 4 escalator bays, and each bay has an escalator that services the 300 level and a run that will service the 500 level. At the top of each escalator bay, we've got approximately 2,500 square feet where we wanted to improve the amenities for the 500 level patron. And what we have up here is we'll have 4 locations at the top where you can get a hot sandwich or a cold drink. You can watch out-of-town games, you can watch the Panther game, and each of these locations will have terrific views of the city of Charlotte. This is a rendering of the back of the scoreboard. We've got our naming rights partner with Bank of America and 1 single Panther head at the top. And we challenged Wagner Murray also with not just putting a big black box on the top of our stadium, and they came up with tying in the arches that we have on the exterior of the stadium and adding that arch. And in the next 2 weeks, we're going to start topping that scoreboard out. And each one of these arches comes in 4 pieces, and that's 16 feet tall, just adding to the height of that video board. But we think it ties in nicely to the overall design of the stadium. The domes, I'm gonna go through some progress photos, and I'll touch base on the domes here in a minute. So here's a couple progress photos. This is the East End scoreboard. We're a little further along now. We're almost complete there, but there's the East End scoreboard and about half the video board installed. And you can see on the next slide 2 levels of ribbon boards, and we're almost 100% installed to date now on the upper and lower ribbon boards. Here's a progress photo of the Southgate escalator tower. We're preparing there to do some horizontal framing to pour the 3rd level concrete. We have completed all 4 escalator bays on the concrete work there, and we're preparing for precast work now. And here's a fully formed escalator bay, and you can see right here, right here is where the 500 level escalator is going to come up and land up there. And here's the north escalator bay with, as you can imagine, the views that we're going to have from there of uptown Charlotte. They've got such a pretty skyline there. So this final slide, from the beginning, the statues and the domes were kind of our welcome mat to Bank of America Stadium. I think everybody would agree that the Panther statues were a huge hit and a great addition. They're photographed on a daily basis. The domes are another great attribute of our front door, but we didn't get it right 17 years ago. The panels are fiberglass, and over the years, the sun has really beat those up, and the white domes that were supposed to be white have turned yellow. So what we're doing now is we're replacing all that fiberglass with glass, 3M coated glass, and these domes here will be white in the day and white at night, and we're adding an LED component on these ribs right here. So all these ribs will have an LED component with a lighting control system that we could change lights, but primarily, of course, they'll be the processed blue, and we can program them to do anything we want. And this glass down here, you'll see, will be blue at all times. So there's some progress pictures of our renovations. I'm going to turn it over now to Danny for some Q&A.